Good morning, Muse. I wanted to take a moment to talk about, if I may, to talk about my method of writing and how I take the ideas that you give me and turn them into stories that people can read. I thought maybe you might be interested in it. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you're off with your other Muse friends doing Muse things, listening to Muse. Do you listen to Muse? It doesn't matter. Maybe I don't want to know what kind of music you listen to, Muse. But anyway, that's beside the point. Recently, I've actually put a title to my method of writing. I know it. I don't want that to sound like I'm an egomaniacal idiot, or that I think that my method is better than anybody else, because I don't. But it became important to me to I've done a lot of stepping back lately and examining my processes. And a lot of good came out of it, I think. I realized some things. I learned a lot. And I think it's something that every author, every artist should do at random times and on regular occasions. Step back and view what you're doing, how you're doing what you do, and see how you can improve it. And during that process recently, I realized that over all these years of writing that I have been kind of following this sort of method. And this method, I think, because the true start of my career as a writer began during my time in graduate school studying acting. So my method of writing is very much based on the studies I was doing then. And what I was studying at the time was Meisner, the Meisner technique of acting. And if you've studied it, you know, I'll say this phrase and you'll either cringe or you'll smile, but Meisner is very much about being in the moment. And that's what my writing style is. And I get a lot of new writers coming to me for advice. And one of the first things I do is ask them, well, what is your process? And a lot of them, I find, spend a lot of time as they write looking ahead. Maybe it's because of a concern about story, or maybe even going so far as to wondering what's going to happen in the next book. But they spend an inordinate amount of time looking ahead. What that does, I think, is that negates what's happening now and what's happened in the past. And for me, writing is all about cause and effect. What happened prior, what is happening now, dictates to me what happens next. But in order to do that, I've got to listen. I've got to listen to my characters. I've got to listen to my story. I've got to listen to you, of course. I've got to listen to me. So it's not as simple as just writing something and then rereading what you've written and kind of internally listening to what you've written so that it dictates what you write next. It's about opening your ears and your eyes such that you listen to everything. You listen to what has been said, what is needed, the character's obstacles, the universe, the grand universe, the universe of the story, and of course you have to listen to yourself. It's all about instinct. How and it's instinct. It's kind of a translated instinct. You have your main character in a book, right? And as you're writing, you're listening to what's happening to that character and what that character thinks and feels, and what those things around that character, what they think and feel about that character. And you respond to that as a writer. But you can't respond to that as you. And I'm not saying, we're not talking about a Stanislavskian style where you embody that character completely. You just have to know how to listen as that character and through that world. And when all of a sudden you can open your ears and your eyes to such massive listening, you can start to hear as that character. And you know, instinctively you will then know what the effect is from the cause. And then everything just kind of falls into place. And it becomes really hard because you've got all of these characters in this book and all these elements, especially if you're writing something like urban fantasy or horror or anything, because you might have mystical elements or anything else. But you sort of have to become this metaphorical metaphorical microphone where you're picking up all of this input from everything as you're writing. And then the feedback that you give on paper or on your computer is the cause, or is the effect. A begets B begets C begets D. When you're looking ahead, when you're spending so much time looking ahead, what's going to happen in the story, what's going to happen to the character, or what's going to happen in the next book, you neglect what is happening in the now, in the moment. And if you're neglecting what's happening in the moment, you can't respond organically. And so what happens is your characters all of a sudden have inorganic and unnatural responses. And enough of that happens and your book becomes unbelievable. And I think that's how you can take something as completely unbelievable as, say, the Nameless Saga and make it believable. Because the characters are responding realistically in the moment. And it sounds, when I talk about it, it sounds easy, but it's not. And I'm not saying that I've mastered anything or blah blah blah, or my technique is better than anybody's because blah 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 blah. What I'm saying is that you have to start now. You have to start listening now. You have to start working in the moment now, so you can develop this technique, so you can make it become second nature. Because at first it's not going to be second nature. This kind of active listening does not come naturally to most people. Especially the part of listening and responding. And we're back to Meisner. Because you have to listen and respond to your characters. You have to take an active role in that. And if you don't take an active role in that, everything kind of flattens out. And your characters become unbelievable and unnatural. So that's kind of where I stand with my technique. And I know that it's, I have only recently, like I said, I've only recently given it a title. And I'm going to continue working on it and developing it some more. But I believe that most writers could benefit from even just considering what I'm talking about. Active listening. Cause and effect. A begets B begets C begets D. Actively listen to your characters and the story and the surroundings within the universe of the book and outside of the universe of the book. Listen here, listen here, listen here, listen here. What do you think, Muse? Am I crazy? I don't know. Maybe I am. I think all artists are to a certain degree, but anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got for today, Muse. Water. Source of life. Ow. I love you, Muse.